The heat from the twin suns burned down on the dust-covered streets of the alien outpost. People from 100 different species walked through the market: traders, smugglers, bounty hunters, and scavengers. It smelled of oil, rust, sweat, and something rotten. In the middle of this chaos walked a human named Eli, carrying a metal bag full of old tools. Eli didn't like this place. He only came to buy parts for his broken ship. But the market was cheap, and he didn't have many credits. His boots crunched over gravel and dry bones. Voices shouted all around him: fresh fuel cells, half-priced plasma rifles. Wanna buy a pet? That last one made him stop. Eli turned slowly. It wasn't a pet shop. It was a slave pen. Rusty metal cages lined the dirty alley. Inside were alien creatures, some humanoid, some not. Many were chained, filthy, and silent. Most had collars around their necks, marked with glowing codes. A tall, red-skinned alien with a wide smile stood in front of the cages, calling out to customers. Eli's stomach twisted. He hated slavery, but he knew interfering here could get him shot. Still, his eyes scanned the cages, half in anger, half in disbelief. Then he saw her. She was small, curled up in the far corner of the last cage. Pale skin, fur-covered ears on top of her head, and a long cat-like tail coiled around her legs. Her hair was messy, her eyes shut tight, and her ribs showed through her skin. She didn't look like the others. She looked young, weak, like she hadn't eaten in days. She had a chain around her neck, tight and short, like she was some wild animal. Eli moved closer. The alien seller laughed. You want that one, human? Not much left in her. Wild Nakari. Bites, won't speak, won't obey. She's just trash now. Might be good for training a hunting dog, huh? The girl didn't move. But Eli saw her tail twitch. He leaned down slowly. She opened her eyes and stared at him. Those eyes were golden, glowing faintly. But they were not angry, not wild. They were tired, scared, and begging. Something in Eli's chest tightened. He had seen many terrible things during his life, among the stars. But those eyes broke something in him. He whispered, "What's your name?" She said nothing, but her ears moved. She heard him. She understood. The seller kicked the cage. "Speak, mutt," he shouted. The girl flinched and closed her eyes again. Eli stood up and turned away. He didn't come for this. He didn't need this. But as he walked away, those golden eyes haunted him. All through the market, all through the noise. Even when he bought his parts, he kept looking back. "Don't be stupid," he muttered to himself. "She's not your problem." But something inside kept whispering, "She will die in that cage." You know it. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The stars above the outpost were quiet. But in his mind, he kept seeing her cold, hungry, and chained like a beast. He saw her eyes again and again, and he felt shame in the morning without fully understanding why. He walked back to the market. The cages were still there. The seller was still laughing, and the girl, she was still chained. But now, she wasn't even sitting up. Her small body lay on the ground, unmoving. Eli's heart dropped. He stepped forward. "I want to buy her," he said. The seller raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? You? Human? You'll regret it." "I said I'll take her," Eli said again, his voice sharper. The seller shrugged. "Fine. 100 credits. That's robbery," Eli growled. "Take it or leave it." Eli pulled out his bag, threw down the credits, and stepped to the cage. He knelt. She didn't move. Carefully, he unlocked the cage, then touched the chain. She flinched weakly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered. She opened one eye, confused, scared. He unlatched the collar and held it in his hand. It was heavier than it looked. Slowly, he reached down and lifted her into his arms. She didn't fight. She was too weak. The crowd stared, whispering. One alien laughed. The human bought a wild cat. Eli didn't care. He walked through the dusty market holding her like she was a wounded child. She didn't speak, but her head rested against his chest, and as they left the slave market behind, her tail wrapped loosely around his wrist. Eli's boots crunched on the rocky path as he carried the alien cat girl back to his outpost quarters. She was too light for someone her size. It felt like he was holding a bundle of bones wrapped in soft skin. Her furred ears twitched now and then, but she said nothing. She didn't even look up. His small home was built on the edge of the outpost wall, a metal shack with solar panels, a repair bench, a bed, and some old food rations. Not much, but it was clean, safe, and quiet. Eli opened the door and stepped inside. The moment he placed her down on the bed, she curled up, wrapping her tail tightly around herself. Her ears were flat. Her body was tense. She didn't trust this place. She didn't trust him, and he couldn't blame her. Eli stepped back, gave her space. He warmed a packet of soup and placed it on the table beside her. Then, without saying a word, he sat across the room and began fixing a damaged drone, just like any other night. He acted normal, like she wasn't chained yesterday, like she belonged here, but she didn't touch the soup, not that night. The next morning, Eli woke to find her still on the bed. She hadn't moved much. The soup was cold and untouched. Her eyes watched him silently, like a wild creature ready to flee at the smallest noise. "I'm not your master," Eli said softly. "You don't have to obey me. You're not a slave here." Still, she said nothing. Later that day, Eli walked into the room with a warm blanket. She growled a low, warning sound. Not loud, but clear. Eli froze. "I'm just setting this here," he said, placing the blanket on the edge of the bed. Then he slowly backed away. He didn't want to scare her, but her fear was deep. It wasn't just about being hurt. It was about expecting to be hurt. She didn't understand kindness. That night, Eli placed a small bowl of food on the floor instead of the table. Then he pretended to sleep. Hours passed. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the power unit. Then, in the darkness, he heard a quiet sound. Click, click. Tiny claws on metal floor. He kept his eyes closed. Sniff, sniff. Then the soft sound of chewing. She was eating. He smiled, but didn't move. He didn't want to scare her away. Not yet. The next morning, the bowl was empty, and she was no longer on the bed. She was by the door, curled up like a guard dog. Her tail lay across her paws, and her eyes were half closed. She had moved herself there. She had chosen that spot. Eli made breakfast. This time, he left it on the table. She didn't touch it, but she watched him as he ate his own. That was progress as the days passed. A pattern started to form. She didn't speak. She didn't touch the bed again, but she kept eating the food he left. She slept by the door. Every night, never inside the room fully. She followed him with her eyes. Sometimes, when he worked on machines, she would creep closer. Curious, Eli noticed something strange. Every time he stepped near the door, she would tense up. Not because she wanted to escape, but because she thought someone would come in. She was afraid of them, whoever had kept her before, and she didn't trust the outside. On the fifth night, a sudden sandstorm hit the outpost. The wind screamed, and the power flickered. Eli locked all the windows and doors, but the noise still roared. Then he saw her huddled in the corner. Shaking, not from cold, but from memories, she whimpered softly. Eli grabbed the blanket and walked slowly toward her. She hissed, her tail whipping once. He stopped, sat down right in front of her. He didn't touch her. He just sat there, quiet, close. After a long time, she stopped shaking. Her ears slowly turned forward, and then she moved. She crawled just a little and rested her head against his knee. Eli didn't move. He just whispered, "You're safe now." Later that night, he found her lying by the door again. But this time, her tail was curled toward the room, not away. That tiny change said everything. She was still afraid, but she was beginning to believe him. In the morning, he woke up to something strange. On the floor beside the door was a metal gear, perfectly cleaned. One of the drone parts that had gone missing. She had returned it. As a gift, it was her way of saying something. Not with words, but with trust. Eli opened his eyes slowly. Morning light passed through the dusty window panels of his outpost home. The storm had passed. The air was still, quiet, but she was there right by the door, curled into a small ball, her golden eyes already awake. Watching him, she hadn't moved much in the night. She never did. And still, she didn't speak. It had been a full week. Since he brought her home from the market, she now ate the food he gave her. She didn't growl as often. She didn't flinch when he walked nearby. But she still didn't trust him, not fully. Every move Eli made was followed by her sharp eyes. When he stood, her ears twitched. When he left a room, she stayed behind. When he came too close, she sometimes pulled her tail tight. As if preparing to run, she was never relaxed. She never laughed. She never slept deeply. Even when she purred in her sleep, her hands were clenched. She had lived in fear too long. That afternoon, Eli worked on one of his drones outside the outpost. The sun was gentle. Dry wind blew sand across the rocky land. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a flicker of movement. It was her. She stood at the door, watching him, her thin body framed in sunlight, tail swaying slowly. She had never stepped outside before, not since he brought her here. Eli didn't say a word. He kept working. Letting her decide after a few minutes, she stepped out, careful, barefoot. Her eyes scanned the horizon like someone who had escaped prison but feared being dragged back. She didn't go far. She didn't go far. She sat 3 meters from him, cross-legged, silent, but she was closer than ever before. Eli kept talking aloud while fixing the drone, about the weather, about the ship he once flew, about the time he saw a space whale above Saturn. He wasn't trying to get a response. He just wanted her to know. This place was safe. She listened. That was clear. Her ears twitched every time he said something new. Once or twice, he thought he saw her lips twitch like she almost smiled. But then, a shadow passed overhead. A large bird creature flew by, casting a wide-winged shadow across the ground. Instantly, the cat girl jumped up, her back arched, fangs bared. Eli raised both hands. "It's just a flyer. It won't come near us." Tay, but her breathing was heavy. Her claws had extended. Her tail stiff. It took a full minute for her to calm down again. Then, without warning, she turned and ran back inside the house. Eli sighed. He knew it would take time. She wasn't afraid of just strangers. She was afraid of everything. Noise, movement, change, even the sky. That night, Eli made warm stew and placed a bowl beside her. She sniffed it, then began to eat, but only after he stepped far away. When she finished, she gently pushed her bowl across the floor, closer to him. It was her silent thank you. Then, for the first time, she looked directly into his eyes for more. Then a second, golden, wide. Curious, he smiled. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. "I won't sell you. I won't hurt you. You don't have to earn anything." She blinked, and then softly, so soft he almost didn't hear it, she whispered, Why? Eli froze. Her voice was small, dry, broken, like it hadn't been used in years. He sat down, slowly. Because? No one should live in chains. She stared at him. You bought me, she said again, a bit louder. I freed you, he answered. But why? Eli didn't speak for a while. Then he said, because when I looked in your eyes, I saw someone who didn't deserve what happened to her. She looked away. Everyone says that in the beginning. That one sentence said so much it meant. She'd been taken before. It meant she'd lies before. It meant someone had used soft words and then hurt her. Eli didn't argue. Instead, he said, then I'll show you I'm different. Not by words, by how I treat you, day by day. She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. The next morning, Eli woke up to the sound of small metal clinks. He opened one eye. She was crouched beside his desk, sorting through old bolts and wires. She held a damaged drone part and was gently cleaning it with a cloth. When she noticed him watching, she froze. Then, slowly, she pushed the part toward him and turned away. Not to run, just to sit by the door again. She still didn't trust him fully. But that day, she helped him clean 3 more drone parts. She didn't speak again, but she stayed close. And at night, when the wind howled once more, through the cracks in the wall, she moved her sleeping spot. This time, she curled up just inside the doorway, not outside, not by the wall. Closer to him, rain was rare on the outpost. But today, it came. Soft drops tapped against the roof of Eli's small home. The sky outside was gray, hiding the twin suns behind thick clouds. It made the world quiet, still, peaceful inside. The girl was awake early. She sat near the corner where the door met the wall, her tail curled tightly around her legs. She stared out the small window, watching the strange sky she had never seen rain before. Eli didn't say anything. He just brought over a small cup of warm tea and placed it near her without a word. She looked at it, sniffed it, then, slowly picked it up with both hands. She took a sip and didn't spit it out. That alone felt like a small victory. Later that morning, Eli worked at his bench, fixing a voice modulator. He noticed her watching again. Her golden eyes followed every wire, every tool, every movement. He looked at her and smiled. You like machines. She didn't speak, but after a moment, she nodded just once. Eli's smile grew. Want to help me? She tilted her head. Then, without answering, she walked over slowly. She sat on the floor beside his chair, silent, careful, but willing. He handed her a small tool. Just press this button when I say. She took it. Her fingers brushed his. Her ears twitched, but she didn't pull away. Hours passed like that. Quiet work. Shared space. The rain kept falling outside, but inside the room, something warmer was building. Not loud, not fast, but real. Eli fixed wires. She pressed buttons. He talked softly. She listened, and at one moment when a spark flew too close and surprised her. She jumped and he laughed, not at her, just at the spark. It was the first time she heard his laugh. She didn't laugh back, but her ears turned forward. That evening, Eli brought out something special, a can of sweet earth fruit. Saved from his last trip to the inner colonies, he split it into 2 bowls. This one's yours, he said, sliding it toward her. She stared at the bright red fruit slices inside. She sniffed, touched it with her claw gently, then tasted. Her eyes widened. Slightly, she took another bite, then another. Then she ate the whole thing in silence. When she finished, she looked up at him, and for the first time, she didn't look away. Later, Eli played music on his old device. Soft sounds from Earthcom notes, no words. The kind that made a person breathe slower. She didn't ask him to stop. Instead, She walked closer to the sound. Her tail moved slowly, side to side. She sat near the speaker and closed her eyes. Eli watched her. She looked. "Calm, safe Dot," he whispered. "Do you remember your name?" She opened her eyes, thought for a moment, then nodded again. He waited, but she didn't speak it. He didn't ask again. Instead, he said, "You can tell me when you're ready." That night, something new happened. Eli was lying on his bed, reading an old data pad. Oh, wow. The storm had stopped. The world was still. Then he heard soft footsteps. Light. Careful, she was walking toward him. He didn't move. She came to his side, and then, gently, she curled upright beside the bed. Not at the door. She rested her head against the wall. Her tail touched the leg of his bed. Eli whispered, "You're closer than usual." She didn't reply, but he could hear her breathing. Steady, deep, and then he heard it, a soft, low, vibrating sound. Almost like a hum, but deeper, smoother. It was coming from her chest. She was purring. Eli stayed still, not wanting to break the moment. The sound continued. Gentle, comforting. It wasn't loud, but it was. Everything. It was her way of saying, "I feel safe now." It was her voice, not with words, but with trust. He whispered, "That's a beautiful sound." She opened one eye, looked at him sleepily, then closed it again, still purring. The next morning, Eli found something new on his table. A flower small, purple, and rare. One that only grew near the rocky edges of the outpost cliffs. She had gone out alone. To find it, he touched it gently. A gift. A silent thank-you. Later that day, he asked, "Do you want to pick your own name?" She paused, then nodded, but she didn't speak it yet. She just sat beside him again, working on another drone. This time, her tail gently tapped against his foot. Not by mistake, by choice. And every night after that, she didn't sleep by the door anymore. She slept right beside his bed, still purring. The outpost was quiet again. The days had become routine, soft, calm, peaceful. Eli worked on machines. The alien cat girl, now a little stronger, helped in small ways. She still hadn't told him her name, but she responded to soft whistles. And she even smiled once, just a little. She no longer flinched when he came close. She even sat with him during meals. Her eyes had a glow again, not of fear, but of life. But peace never lasted long on the edge of the galaxy, and danger, like a shadow, always returned when you least expected it. It began one afternoon. Eli was outside, cleaning an old solar panel, when he saw the dust cloud too wide, too fast. Not a storm, a ship. A dark, low-flying cargo vessel with jagged wings and a red symbol painted across its hull. Eli's face turned cold. That marquee had seen it before. .slaver. He rushed back inside, heart racing. She was sitting by the window, playing with a stripped cable. When she saw his face, her ears twitched sharply. He didn't have to say anything. She felt it. Something was wrong. The ship landed less than a mile away. Eli powered down his tools, locked the doors, and dimmed the lights. His home wasn't built for war. It barely had a working shield. He kept an old plasma cutter, but it wasn't much. He turned to her. "You need to hide." She shook her head. "Please," he said gently. "If they see you, they'll take you." Her tail flicked nervously, but she didn't move. Then he added, "Not because I own you, but because I care. I don't want to lose you." That made her eyes widen, and slowly she nodded. He opened a panel on the floor beneath it, a dark crawl space with old scrap and storage. She slipped inside quietly, her body fitting into the shadows. Her tail wrapped around her tightly. Eli closed the panel. Then he waited. Knock, 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 knock. Not the kind of knock that asked permission, but demanded submission. Eli opened the door. 2 tall aliens stood outside, one red-skinned, with sharp tusks, the other thin and blue, with silver armor. Human, the red one growled. We're here for what you stole. Eli stayed calm. I didn't steal anything. You bought her, Nakari girl. That one was marked, belonged to the ring of gold flame. Property can't be bought unless we say so. She's not property, Eli said, voice firm. The blue one laughed. Then why is she hiding? Eli didn't flinch. She's free now. You have no right to take her. The red alien stepped closer. Look around, human. You see the law here. You're alone. Weak one word from us, and this shack burns to the ground. Eli's hand moved toward his belt, toward the plasma cutter, but he stopped himself. Fighting now would mean death. For both of them, he needed to stall. She's gone, Eli lied. Left 2 days ago. Took a transport to the ice moons. The aliens looked at each other, then pushed past him. They searched the house, opened cabinets, kicked the bed, knocked over a table. The red one sniffed. She was here. Eli's jaw tightened. The blue one stepped near the corner. Near the floor panel, Eli tensed. But before he could react, the alien was distracted by a noise outside his ship had beeped, calling for attention. The red one cursed. We'll be back, human. You better pray she's not here next time. Then, without another word, they left. Eli didn't breathe until the ship vanished in the sky. Only then did he kneel and open the floor. She was shaking, her eyes wide, body curled tight, ears flat, but not from fear of the slavers. She was afraid for him. I'm sorry, Eli whispered. I shouldn't have let them in. She shook her head. They always come back. Her voice was small, but there, he touched her shoulder gently. We'll stop them next time. Her eyes looked into his dot, and then, in a voice full of pain, she said, They branded me. Eli froze. She pulled back her hair just slightly. Behind her neck, hidden under fur, was a scar burned into her skin. A mark. A number. A code. Eli's hands curled into fists. They said I was wild, broken. They wanted to train me. 4. Sale. Her voice broke. I bit them, so they locked me in cages. I stopped speaking, so they'd leave me alone. A tear ran down her cheek. I was never a person to them. Eli's voice was low. To me, you are. She looked at him again. He didn't ask for her name. He didn't offer fake promises. He just stood there, like a wall between her and the world. That night, she didn't sleep on the floor. She climbed into his bed, silently, carefully, and curled beside him, not as property, not as a pet, but as someone who needed a home and trusted the human who gave it. The next day, the air over the outpost felt heavy. Eli tried to act normal. He worked on his drone engines, cleaned the filters, made lunch, but his eyes kept going to the sky. The slaver ship would return. He knew it. And this time, they wouldn't knock. The girl could feel it too. She stayed close to him all day. Her golden eyes always scanning the door. Her ears stayed alert, never dropping into comfort. Her tail never rested. She didn't smile that day, not once. By evening, Eli was checking the old weapons he kept buried in the wall panel. A dusty blaster, 2 smoke charges, and the plasma cutter. None of it would be enough if they came armed. Still, he'd fight if he had to. He turned to her. She stood in the corner, watching silently. I want you to hide again if they come. She narrowed her eyes. No. Eli blinked. You don't have to fight. She took a step forward. I'm not hiding again. There was strength in her voice now, not just fear. Eli stepped closer. If they catch you, they won't, she said sharply. Her claws came out. Just a little. I'm not theirs. I never was. And they're not taking you either. Eli stared at her. She wasn't shaking anymore. She was. Ready, night fell. The power lights flickered. Then a loud crash. The front door blasted open, metal twisting from the force. Eli spun around, grabbing the blaster. Dust filled the air. Through the smoke stepped the two slavers, not alone this time. 3 more armed guards followed, wearing black armor and visors. One of them had a net gun. Another held a shock rod. The red-skinned slaver growled. Told you, human. We always come back. Eli aimed the blaster. She's not here. But the girl stepped out from behind the bed. She was done hiding. The slavers froze for a second, not expecting her to show herself. Then the blue one grinned. There she is. Our little product. The net gun fired. Eli shouted, nitrogen monoxide. A T. Didn't need to. She moved faster than any of them expected. Her body twisted midair, the net missing her by inches. She landed on all fours, eyes glowing. Her ears were flat. Her claws out, another guard raised a shock rod, but she was already on him. One slash, blood. A scream. She leaped again. Silent like a shadow, deadly like a storm. Eli ducked as another net flew by. He fired his blaster, hitting a guard in the shoulder. The room turned into chaos. The red slaver roared, pulling out a whip. He swung it toward the girl. It caught her leg. She cried out but didn't fall. She turned and bit. His arm-hardened tailbone cracked. The whip dropped. Eli jumped in, using the plasma cutter to burn a hole in the wall panel. This way, run. But the girl didn't run. She stood in front of him, between Eli and the Aslef. Another guard charged. She struck fast, claws slicing through his visor. The last one ran for the exit. Smart choice. The red and blue slavers remained wounded, bleeding, terrified. The blue one pointed a gun. We'll bring more. You can't keep her forever. The girl stepped forward, baring her teeth. Her voice was calm. She's not yours, she growled. She's mine now. Eli's heart skipped. Not as property, but as his family. The slavers limped away, left their men behind, left their weapons behind. They knew. They had lost. Not to a soldier, but to a small Nakari girl, who chose to fight for someone who never chained her. After it was over, Eli sat on the floor, catching his breath. Blood dripped from his arm, but he was smiling. You saved my life. The girl stood beside him, breathing heavy. Her fur was burned in places, but her eyes were clear. You saved mine first, she said softly. Then she reached for his hand and held it, not as a prisoner, not as a pet, but as someone who had found her strength again. That night, Eli patched up her wounds. She sat still, wincing only once. He gave her a warm drink. She accepted. When she lay down near his bed, her tail gently curled around his boot. I still don't know your name, he said quietly. She looked up. My name is Kira. Eli smiled. Kira. She nodded, then whispered, thank you for giving me back my name. Outside, the stars were bright, and inside, for the first time since she came, here she slept deeply. No fear, no chains, only freedom and trust. Weeks had passed. Since the night Kira fought to protect Eli, the broken door had been repaired. The walls had new metal plates. The scars on Eli's arms were healing. The bruises on Kira's legs had faded, but what truly changed was something deeper: the silence between them. Once heavy and fearful was now comfortable. She didn't hide anymore. She didn't flinch when he raised his hand to wave. She didn't sleep curled in corners or under floors now. She walked freely, tail swaying gently, moving like she belonged, because finally, she did. Eli had added a second chair at his workbench. He didn't even realize it at first. One morning, Kira sat there, picked up a tool, and began helping him repair a navigation beacon. She didn't ask. She didn't wait for permission. She chose to help. And he smiled. Sometimes they worked in silence. Sometimes they spoke. She still didn't say much. But when she did, her voice was soft, clear, honest. And when she laughed for the first. Timeel dropped his tool in surprise. It was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. At night, Kira no longer guarded the door with fear. She still slept beside it. But not like a servant or a scared pet. She lay there by choice, like a guardian, like someone who didn't just feel protected, but wanted to protect. 2. Eli asked her once, "Why don't you sleep on the bed?" She had smiled faintly and said, "Because I hear better from the door." He nodded. He understood, but she added, after a pause, "and because. That way, I'm the first to stop anyone trying to hurt you." One day, a supply ship landed at the outpost. The pilot, a friendly woman named Rena, had known Eli for years. When she saw Kira, her eyes widened. "A Nakari, with you." Eli simply said, "She's family." Kira blinked but said nothing. Later that night, while they watched the stars from the roof, Kira asked, "What does family mean to humans?" Eli looked at her. "It means you're not alone anymore. Someone always comes back for you. Someone fights for you. Someone waits when you're missing." She looked down, thoughtful. Then, she whispered, "You're my family too." Eli smiled. No words could have meant more. Soon, he started small changes to the home. Kira painted the wall near the window with strange pattern symbols from her world. Eli didn't understand them, but he didn't need to. He just liked seeing her touch on the walls. She also made a wind chime using old ship parts. It hung outside the door, and every time the wind blew, it made a soft, calming sound. "Why this?" Eli asked. She replied, "So I know when someone comes." Even in my sleep, Eli chuckled. "Still guarding." Kira nodded with a grin. "Always." One quiet evening, they sat outside, drinking warm tea. Eli looked at her. "Do you miss your homeworld?" Kira was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I don't remember it well. I was taken too young. The cages were all I knew." Eli looked down, heart heavy. "But," she continued, "if home means safety, warmth, someone who looks for you." Then she looked at the stars. "Then I'm already home." Eli didn't speak. He just reached over and gently placed his hand on hers. She didn't pull away. That night, as always, she curled by the door. But this time, she brought a small pillow, a blanket, and her own handmade chime, which she placed inside the room. She had stopped being afraid, but she had not stopped protecting the one person who gave her back her life in the middle of the night. Eli woke from a dream. He looked toward the door. Kira was there, sleeping peacefully, tail wrapped around herself, but still positioned between him and the bonsai. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't a weapon. She wasn't a pet. She was his family. And she chose to sleep at his door so he could sleep without fear. In a galaxy full of noise, war, and cruelty, two beings found each other, not through power, not through chains, but through kindness and choice. The human who once walked alone through the slave market, and the girl who once slept in a cage like an animal, now shared the same roof, the same quiet, and the same understanding. They never said, "I love you." They never needed to, because every night she curled by the door, and every morning he placed tea by her side. Was love enough?